For God, who commanded light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. That is in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 6. So in the same way, I'm going to also try and help us understand on what a curriculum monitoring is all about. But now the main idea we're going to talk about is the principles of a curriculum monitoring to adapt the changing needs in the society, in our schools, and all around. I believe all of us are okay, and I thank God for this opportunity, and I believe you're going to enjoy the lesson. So what is curriculum monitoring? Curriculum monitoring, it is a systematic continuous process of tracking implementations to ensure educational goals are met. So from the word monitoring, it's you have to take heed, you have to have a follow-up on what happens in an education, in a school, in order to ensure that the educational goals are met. So we have alignment with goals and objectives. That is the first principle. What does that mean? Monitoring ensures that daily teaching, that is what teachers do in classes, learning materials, the books that are used, the computers that are used in schools, and assessment methods, that is how the examinations occur in a school, they align with the intended learning outcomes and the national standards, that is the national objectives. Then systematic and regular frequency. That's another principle. Systematic and regular frequency in curriculum monitoring refers to conducting ongoing, scheduled, and structured checks on how a curriculum is implemented. Like it has to have a way, it has to have a process, not something that jumps from one corner to another corner. No, it has to be systematic rather than treating it as a one-time event or an ad hoc exercise. It ensures that data is collected consistently over time, allowing for prompt adjustments, continuous improvement, and the ability to identify gaps in teaching and learning immediately. So systematic and regular frequency is also needed. For example, it should be daily, weekly, or termly to ensure consistent data collection. Then we have continuous improvement. There is formative focus. Formative, you understand formative. Formative is something that happens not just once but in a continuous way, right? So monitoring is an ongoing process designed to provide constant feedback rather than a one-time evaluation. It aims to improve rather than just judge the implementation process. So what does that mean? That this principle, like a continuous improvement, like it has to go, even though it is weekly, daily, monthly, it has to go on so that we may have constant feedback on how we can adapt to new situations, okay? Then we have flexibility and adaptability. The process allows for modification in response to feedback or changing societal or learners' needs rather than remaining rigid. So in this, what do we say? The process, it allows modification. Like when something has happened and you see the need to be a change there, that is where adaptability comes in, where you have to adapt the situation in order to meet the learner's needs or the societal needs, rather than just remaining rigid. So it has to be changed, it has to be flexible in order to have the changes. Then we have stakeholders involvement. Involving teachers, students, parents, and the community members, it provides diverse perspectives and ensures accountability. So whatever happens in a school, let's say whatever happens in a school, at the end of it all, when something is amiss, you have someone to ask who will be accountable for that. And if it's a student, the parents at home will also be accountable to that. So the stakeholders' involvement has been a very great part in this CBE. So we have alignment with goals and objectives. That is the first principle. What does that mean? Monitoring ensures that daily teaching, that is what teachers do in classes, learning materials, the books that are used, the computers that are used in schools, and assessment methods, that is how the examinations occur in a school, they align with the intended learning outcomes and the national standards, that is the national objectives. Then we have equity and inclusivity. Monitoring, it checks whether all learners, regardless of ability or background, have equal access to learning opportunities and whether special needs are met. That is equity. Equity, what is equity? It's when we talk about equity, is like, for example, let's say a short person and a tall person, right? And a short person, they are all given a desk to stand on, but now the short person is not seeing through, but the tall person is seeing through, but all of them have been given the equality of the same desk. But now, equity, we have to adjust in order for this short person to also be able to see through. So once you adjust for them to all see through, that is what we call equity. And inclusivity, regardless of where the learner comes from, has to be involved in the class, has to have the same opportunities, and that all their special needs are met. So this is also another principle. So what are the common methods of the curriculum monitoring? We have classroom observation. In person visits, a person visits to evaluate teaching strategies and students' engagement. That is, the person has to come and observe what happens in a classroom, what happens in a school. So that observation is a main method. Then we have the analysis of the work, reviewing students' works, samples, portfolios, and the teacher's records in order to understand what's going on, in order to know where you left from, so you have to do this. Then feedback mechanism, using surveys, focus groups, and meetings with stakeholders. When you do this, maybe even you can use the questionnaires, you can use the interviews in order to understand what is happening. Then the performance metrics, that is reviewing results of the school-based or the national tests that happen in school. So these are the common methods of curriculum monitoring. As we have understood, monitoring, it's something that is really needed, and it should be implemented, and it should follow the process that has to be followed. And it is very crucial to every school that this curriculum monitoring is looked into in order for us to adapt in the changing of the society. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the lesson and you got the main points, and hope you'll subscribe.